Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of Semi-Pro. My name is Dalton Barrett, and joining me today is Daniel Savage and Bobbin. And in just a few minutes, we're going to watch the trial of the Incredible Hulk. All right, so the trial of the Incredible Hulk. What is everybody's? Where is everybody landing on what they think this is going to be like?
I think the Incredible Hulk will be on trial.
I think perhaps that Matthew Murdock, a.k.a. the Daredevil, the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, will be his lawyer, perhaps.
Yeah. I think those are both good.
I think it will star famous actor Lou Ferrigno.
Lou Ferrigno? No way. That's crazy.
Lou Ferrigno will never appear in the trial of the Incredible Hulk.
I think that a Hulk TV movie featuring Daredevil sounds very exciting, but I think it'll end up being a drag.
See, I think the opposite. I think it sounds like a drag, but I think I'm going to enjoy it more than I think I'm going to enjoy it.
I hope I'll enjoy it. We'll see.
I expect to enjoy it quite a lot, but that's just me.
See, I expect not to, but we'll see.
I like it.
You just said the opposite.
I expect not to enjoy it, but I think I will, is what I'm saying. Which I guess means I expect to enjoy it.
Man.
Hey,
yeah, not true.
Sometimes I just say things, you know? You ever been there?
I just be saying things.
All right.
Okay, so we're watching this isn't an episode, this is a movie, right?
Correct. This is a TV movie. It's one of two TV movies they did after the show ended. So the show ended.
Wait, so it was after it ended? I didn't know that.
Yes, the series ended, and then they did.
What was the other TV movie they did?
It was The Return of the Incredible Hulk, which you may remember as being the one where Duncan, Daddy Duncan from Good Luck Charlie,
is Thor.
plays Thor. So those are the two Incredible Hulk movies.
Interesting.
Yeah, very fascinating.
This is a conversation for later, but I wonder, what other Marvel heroes they would have done if they kept going. And
I don't know.
I didn't know that.
There's some other characters. Kingpin also pops up in the show, I believe.
I think he's in this movie.
He may be in this movie.
I remember seeing that when I looked up the cast.
Not played by Michael Clark Duncan.
No, unfortunately not.
Very, very sad. Okay, well, we're going to pause this for now. We're going to watch the movie, and then as soon as we're done, we will be back to talk about it just a little bit more.
We watched a movie?
No.
All right, everybody, we are back. We just finished watching the trial of the Incredible Hulk, which was way better than any of us expected it to be.
True.
And with that in mind, we're probably going to watch the rest of the movies as part of the sweep, because we did not expect this movie to be as enjoyable as it was.
First and foremost, I'd like to say, we did our expectations beforehand. I was so hilariously off the mark. We all had such a good time watching this. It's kind of crazy.
This was probably one of the better movies that I expected to be bad that we've watched on the podcast, because there have been a couple of those that I'm like, this is going to be a real drag to sit through, and then it was actually enjoyable. This was probably the best of those.
See, me personally, I knew it was going to be good, but that's just me.
It's crazy to me that Daredevil fans, there's a lot of Daredevil fans now because of the show, but Daredevil fans don't talk about this movie. They talk about the show and they'll talk about the movie, but I didn't know this movie existed until a few years ago. This is pretty niche.
It is niche, but it's also like you said, that's the thing we should probably clarify. This is not a Hulk movie. As much as it is, it's a Daredevil movie with Hulk in it, which is a thing that I wasn't expecting. Like, I was expecting, of course, a Hulk movie with Daredevil in it, and I didn't get that, which is fine because what I got was a Hulk movie.
I much prefer that this was a Daredevil movie with Hulk in it.
Right.
Because Daredevil was so fucking cool in this.
It was very, very cool.
I think you said that this was maybe a backdoor pilot. Was that the intention?
I've heard that. I've heard that this was a backdoor pilot to a Daredevil TV show to replace Hulk because Hulk got canceled.
Right. And it certainly seemed like it was trying to focus on Daredevil.
Very much so. Like, it very much felt like a backdoor pilot to that, which is fine. I'm not saying that negatively because it was actually really cool. I would have loved to have seen what this movie would have been, or what Daredevil as a character would have been.
Yeah, I would have loved to see whatever spin-off show they intended.
Correct.
That did not get made.
Because I think it would have been...
did not do well, probably.
I don't know how this movie did, actually. Because, like, you would think it did well, just given the popularity of Hulk. We were talking a little bit off while we weren't recording, that there's a good chance people didn't like this because they liked Hulk. And
right.
This movie
was really popular.
Right.
Yeah.
And this wasn't about Hulk as much as it was about Daredevil, which could have, upset some folks. I don't know.
I think there were only like 3-4 Hulk scenes in this.
Yeah. As far as like actual legitimate.
I think Hulk only popped up maybe. Yeah, you're right. Like maybe 3, maybe 4 times throughout the hour and a half runtime.
Yeah, and there is no trial. For a movie called The Trial of the Incredible Hulk,
there's the dream thing, which we'll get to.
Yeah, there is no trial of the Incredible Hulk. I mean, I guess he is technically like on trial, but he is never like.
Yeah, there's never an actual trial in which Matthew Murdock, aka the Daredevil, the Devil of Hell's Kitchen, represents him.
Correct. But yeah, Bobbin, you're going to be breaking down the plot for this episode of the.
I am, unfortunately.
Of the podcast. So I'll let you go ahead and take that away. And
podcast. I'd rather Rodcast.
Who's Rod?
True.
Rod Stewart?
No, Rod Wave. He's a rapper.
I've met Rod Stewart, actually.
So
okay.
We start off like most of the Hulk episodes where David Banner.
Right, because Bruce Banner sounds too gay.
That's hold on. Clarify.
These are not our words.
So that's the creator of the Hulk television series decided to rename Bruce Banner to David Banner because the name Bruce Banner sounded too gay. And that is real life canon.
Yes.
So true.
Which is fascinating to me, but regardless, it's not important, I guess.
Yeah, man. Yeah, 70s, what a time.
Weird change. Anyway, so he is, doing his hitchhiker thing, and he's working a job. He gets bullied, and he just he leaves again. And then I don't think we ever rewound. Rewound to find out what city it was, but he goes to.
I don't think they said. I think they just call it the city.
Yeah. I assumed New York, even though the skyline didn't look like New York.
Not even a little bit.
It was Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, it had. Yeah, Daredevil's in New York. It had a subway scene, which was our first Hulk scene, which was very fun, I thought.
Right. Okay, so he goes to maybe Hell's Kitchen, which as always is kind of shadowy, taken over by Kingpin, sort of.
It is a shithole.
So true. But is also protected by masked vigilante Daredevil, Matt Murdock.
Matthew the Madman Murdock is what we're going to call him.
We won't. You can.
It'll take a real Daredevil to protect the city.
I'll have to become the Daredevil
I'm gonna have to become
Which is funny.
of the Incredible.
Which it's funny that you say that because that's a line from this movie, almost word for word, is that a daredevil must protect the city.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's what Bobbin was referencing.
Correct. I thought he was just referencing generic the fact that that's a movie trope.
So David Banner is he's going about things. He's
not
doing
Bruce because that sounds too gay.
true.
Right.
It's so true.
He is very sad. This is a
very straight David Banner.
Correct.
Doing depressed Hulk things and just walking around when these hooligans rob a bank and they get off to the subway train.
Hey yo.
And
yo, they're getting off. What?
So they go to the subway train, and David Banner happens to be there, and as you would expect to happen, they're very suspicious and they're yelling at everybody, and this one guy gets creepy with a girl.
There is generic creepy rapist asshole on a train.
Correct.
Character.
Right. He never goes for it, but you can tell he's thinking about it.
No, he very much kind of goes for it.
Yeah, I don't know what you watched, but he was very much sexually assaulting that woman.
Nah.
Right. I think perhaps.
So that happens, and then Hulk goes Hulk mode. David Banner goes sicko mode, and
not Bruce because that.
Yes, we get it.
We get it. So he goes sicko mode and he beats up all those guys and then he runs away. But then the police find him. So the police find him, they take him back, and who's waiting for him? It is their guy, Matthew Murdock. But the audience doesn't know that yet. It's just the blind lawyer attorney now.
Right. That's the thing I think we have to kind of remember as we're talking about this movie is that the audience probably didn't know a lot of the things that we know.
Outside of like a few comic nerds that were watching this, no one knew who Daredevil was.
Right. We're nerds. And in this movie, there are normal people watching it because normal people were a fan of this show. And we're just some nerds watching it from the future where Dare Guy is like a normal everyday comic book character.
Series with 3 seasons and a spin-off.
Correct. And there was a feature-length film starring Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, it wasn't, but sure.
Matthew Broderick, also known as the man who played Batman in that movie that one time. So like we have all of this context to the character of Daredevil that general audiences probably didn't have unless you were like a super nerd, which I don't think existed as much as it does today back then. And maybe it did, and I'm just being...
There were probably a couple. There was a good handful of people.
Dalton, you're giving an awfully big explanation to this, but I think you're forgetting the fact that...
we're just talking about this movie, man.
I think you're forgetting the fact that it's very obvious that Matt Murdock is Daredevil in this, even if you do not know that character.
I don't know, because they make a really big deal out of the reveal. I don't know that it's as obvious.
Of course they do. That's just how that works.
I don't know that it's as obvious as it feels to us today.
And I mean the same face.
I mean that. Well, yes, but it's covered by a mask. Like, I genuinely don't know that it's as obvious to the original audience as it would have been, or as it is to us. Like, I don't know that that's true.
I mean, really, there is no way of knowing because we are not watching this blind. Haha, I get it, because he's a blind man.
Correct. Just like me.
Right.
All right, so
what happens? What else happens?
Well, if Dalton is done talking about the general audience,
also, again, to interrupt you again, it's worth mentioning that the man playing Matthew Murdock and also the Daredevil of Hell's Kitchen is very good at acting blind. And
we'll get to that after the plot synopsis. We'll compliment the movie after the plot.
Right.
So, David and Matt are, in the room, and they're like, David, what are you telling me? You're some kind of Hulk creature, maybe? And then David is like, no, I'm not.
But you are some kind of Daredevil. That's what he says.
That's what he said.
It's really weird, and it makes it seem like everyone in this movie is kind of stupid, that they like continue to think that David and the Hulk are not like that it's two people.
I wonder if that's another thing where it's like we're used to everyone knowing that Bruce Banner is the Hulk in like modern version, because every other live action version of this story we've ever seen, everyone's just known.
Right.
And I wonder if that's part of it. Like, I wonder if the secret is only not well kept because he is, because we know. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Maybe
it could be the same case as the Daredevil thing.
Like just a perspective thing.
It feels much more obvious, like to the people in the movie, that they're the same person.
Right. Probably so.
But that could just be me.
Especially when he gets broken out of prison and people see it happen.
That was the big one, yeah.
And but we'll get there. We're not there yet.
Correct.
You asked me to do plot breakdown.
Look, man, we're just talking. This is how this works, man. We just talk.
This is how this has always went.
I'm leaving.
No.
No. My bad.
Okay.
I had a psychotic break.
Please. So David is like, no, I don't want to do that. Whatever. I'm just going to go to jail, I guess. And then Matthew is like, no, I love you, David Banner, and you're innocent, I think.
There's this really cool like idea that David or Bruce Banner, depending on, I mean, he's David Banner in this, but Bruce Banner in the context of modern whatever.
Right.
Like there's this really cool idea that he believes that he should be in jail because he views himself as a monster, which is really cool. And I like that. We don't really get that aspect in modern Hulk, which, I mean, admittedly is also a cool and creative idea. I don't want to sound like I'm down on like modern Hulk stories, because I know a lot of people are, and I really kind of enjoy the way the MCU is taking a character.
I very much enjoy both the very serious, depressed Hulk and the kind of accepting of his situation, goofy, wacky Hulk.
Right. I like both versions, but there's something to be said about this version of the character that just like thinks he deserves to rot in prison.
Yeah, it's very interesting and cool. Not to say it's fun because it's depressing and horrible, but it's very fun.
Right. It's different.
Right.
I think I've spent like 5 minutes trying to get past this room scene. Anyway, so
what happens?
Bobbin, this is how we do this. This is how it always goes. We talk about it.
Past the room scene, David Banner, is kept prisoner, and he has a little dream. He has a little dream. It's the only time there's a trial. Right?
Fantastic transition that we have.
The crackedest transition maybe in the history of film. John Carpenter's got nothing on the director of this movie, who I think is Bill Bixby.
I think he directed all of the.
No,
movie?
He did not.
He at least did Death. I know he did.
Yes, he did Death, but he did not do Return. The original director from the show came back for Return.
2 of the trilogy. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So he has the dream, and he's
just like Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, sure.
Man. So he has the dream, and he's getting harassed. He's getting haggled by all these people, and then he's like, I'm gonna Hulk out, and then he hulks out, and then he destroys the bleacher that Stan Lee is on. Stan Lee is in this scene.
This is Stan Lee's first cameo in a Marvel movie, which is an important like point of history because it became a thing after this.
Yeah.
I think the next one after this was Spider-Man. But this is his first.
It would have been. Was he in the first X-Men? Because that was 2000.
I don't remember if he was.
He was. Yeah, he's in the beach.
I remember it wasn't all of them for a while, and then it became all of them.
It was just sporadic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of cool too. Like, so just this marks that history.
He has the nightmare, and he goes into the Hulk, and then a really cool idea that we were talking about is that the stress from the dream actually causes him to turn into the Hulk in real life.
Which is so cool. Like the fact that this nightmare causes him to become the Incredible Hulk, the Trial of the Incredible Hulk, 1988,
that's the
in
name
real
of the
life.
movie we watched and are talking about.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I just never really would have thought of that if it weren't for this movie, that like the stress of being the Incredible Hulk would cause him to Hulk out in real life, like even if it's a dream. Like that's just such a cool little moment. But yeah, continue.
So after Hulk breaks out of the prison, I believe David finds himself back at his like motel apartment place, and then he's gearing up to leave, and then Daredevil shows up for the second time. I think I missed the hospital bit. Or when was the hospital Daredevil?
The hospital bit, that was before they tried to kill David Bruce Banner in prison.
Okay.
First,
Yeah.
They tried to inject.
Okay, let me backtrack for a moment.
Yeah.
So right before that, so the woman from the train is like kind of being bribed to lie on David.
It seems like they're either bribing or threatening her. Somehow illegally coercing her into saying that he is the bad guy and they're the good.
Right, and I think she hasn't said the truth yet, but she's about to, and then the nurse who's under Kingpin is about to assassinate her, and the first appearance of Daredevil is in the scene, and then he kind of hops in and he does some cool flips and beats a woman.
True.
First time, I guess maybe the last time that's happened in live action. Daredevil beating a woman.
Very, very.
The only time that can't be true. Ben Affleck Daredevil definitely beat a woman.
When was that?
He maybe
when he fought Elektra, he didn't like.
Yeah,
like
he
this
didn't
Daredevil
like.
just kind of straight up.
He was like doing like wrestling moves on her.
Yeah, I guarantee you, Daredevil beat a woman at some point since this.
Okay, so but it's fine because she's evil and wants to kill the other lady. So Daredevil, kind of beats up the nurse, I guess, and then he's like, "I'm Daredevil, so I'm gonna flip out the window and goodbye."
And it's cool, and the choreography is cool. And at this point, the costume still looks a little goofy because we've really only seen it kind of still. Like we've seen the fight scenes of it, but it hasn't really settled in. Because you see the behind the scenes of this, and I'm going to assume that the listening audience is much like me, where you've heard a lot about this movie. The listening audience of one person. You've heard a lot about this movie, and maybe you've seen the behind the scenes pictures, but you've never seen it. The costume looks way better in the movie than it does in those photos.
Yeah, for sure.
Like not even like
even in the still shots of it, like not just the movement, like just the lighting in the movie is so much better than in those pictures.
And he's not doing like the super goofy poses and stuff that he's doing in the movie.
I want to make a whole conversation about the lighting and composition in this film.
It's so good.
Save it until after. But moving on back to the little apartment motel bit. Daredevil shows up. I'm straight up contradicting myself immediately, but the lighting in this shot is so good. Daredevil looks so good here. This is what sold it for all of us, I think.
Yeah,
like wow, Daredevil.
I think it was
just that scene in general was so cracked.
The alleyway scene was one of the coolest Daredevil scenes ever put to film.
Was the alleyway bit right before?
Yes. So the alleyway bit is how he finds out where the room is that Banner is in.
Right.
And then so that's just a super cool scene where he just like he just finds this dude in an alley and he just like beats him up for information. Super cool, super cracked. But then after that, what we see is we see Daredevil. There's a scene where Bruce Banner or Eric Banner is leaving.
It's David.
Eric Bana is the actor who played Hulk in
that bad Hulk movie.
Correct. Like he's leaving the area.
He's about to hitchhike again out of the apartment motel,
and he goes to the door, and as he goes to open the door opens just on its own.
Oh, such a cool shot
and
of Daredevil just looming in the doorway.
It's so cool. It's such a cool shot because he opens the door like for him, and it's like super ominous.
Yeah,
it's very, very
and
cool.
even just like once he walks into the room, there's like this steady flashing red light outside.
Yes,
so sick.
It's such a cool scene in this.
Very, very briefly, I will touch on. What'd you say the actor's name was? Rex something?
Rex something. He's also a musician.
The guy who's very good at acting like a blind man.
He is the best fake blind actor maybe ever. To the point where we were asking each other if he was actually
blind. Yeah.
He does an amazing Daredevil, not only with like the choreo and how he moves, but his whispery voice.
Yeah.
And his physique is really good too.
His body language, like as acting like a blind man, like so good.
But also, I mean, like also when he was in the costume and like when he's moving and like fighting, like he looks like a ninja, and it's slow, but it's cool.
But he also looks like a blind ninja, which I would assume is a very difficult thing to pull off.
That it was a lot like the Michael Keaton Batman's fighting, where he seems very casual about it, which makes him seem more cool and badass.
Well, it almost seems like a limitation of the time.
Well, right, yeah.
Like it seems like something that was not done on purpose.
Benefit,
right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I meant by like being like the Michael Keaton Batman. Is it's like it seems like a limitation or a negative, but it actually wound up paying off really, really well, just because it looked so cool in the Final Cut of the movie, Final Cut Pro, the video editing software.
Amen.
Yeah, sure, man.
Okay, so that happens. They have a brief conversation at the apartment motel thing, and then Daredevil takes off his mask, and he's like, "I am Daredevil, but I am also Matt Murdock, the lawyer guy who spoke to you earlier in this movie." And then David Banner goes, "Whoa, that's crazy!" And then Matt Murdock takes David back to his house, his very big house.
His very, very expensive New York apartment.
True. And really cool bit. They have a little conversation. They talk for a bit. And then they do a brief little origin for Daredevil. And
oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
It's really good. I'm going to let someone else take over.
Why, man?
Yeah, you're on a roll.
Well, I figured someone else will want to talk about the fun things. So,
nah, that's why we asked you to do it.
All right. So anyway, they do a brief little kind of origin montage. You see his training for Daredevil, and he's doing all sorts of flips. He's working on the rings. It's really cool. It's a lot of acrobatic stuff, and it's really neat.
He did the cool spinny acrobatic thing.
True. And he does that for a bit, and then he explains, how he got to where he's at as far as like why he became Daredevil. And he's talking about a police captain, a commissioner or something.
Commissioner Gordon.
Commissioner Gordon.
Straight up, it's just Commissioner Gordon. Like there's no, it's not even regular Commissioner Gordon. It's Commissioner Gordon from the '66 Batman show.
Correct.
They ripped him off.
He has a bat phone, but it's a Daredevil phone because it doesn't
the Daredevil phone.
It's Daredevil.
So the police captain guy has a speech, and he's like, "The police are corrupt, and everyone sucks. If you're gonna clean up the city, you're gonna need to be a real daredevil about it." And then
Murdock is in the crowd, and he just looks right at the camera and smiles.
And it sounds literally. Genuinely, it sounds like that's a joke, but that's what they say in the movie, which I'm gonna forgive it because I like this movie.
It was despite how goofy it was, like it was still so cool.
See, I think that was the movie where I rolled my eyes and I was like, "Really, man?"
That was the weakest part of the movie.
I thought it was pretty cool.
But it's fine because it's part of a super cracked Daredevil origin.
Anyways, yeah. So he finishes that. Also, to note, comic book adaptions of this time would randomly change random things, but like everything was really intact, including Jack Murdoch, the boxer, his origin. Like everything was really, really intact. Like this is a really solid Daredevil.
And
all things considered.
I think Spider-Man sort of kicked this off of like comic book movies needing a really detailed origin for their character, and like the first introduction of them needing to be that. I mean, this show had the opening credits basically of the first episode to tell the origin of who Bruce Banner was, whereas like
excuse you.
I'm sorry, David Banner, because Bruce Banner sounds too gay. But I think Spider-Man really kicked that off, where it's like comic book movies need that to succeed, and so it really followed suit up until just a few years ago. But what they do is they give a very like brief version of his origin, so like they don't go into they don't show his dad dying. He just kind of tells it while Banner looks at a picture. And it's those kind of things that I think are really cool and kind of subtle. And they're things that you don't really see, because now it's like all or nothing. You either don't tell the origin at all and you just you just drop a character into a movie, or you have a really detailed origin of them. And I think it's kind of cool to see that middle ground, especially in something that's in this era and is so old. Like I don't know, it's kind of cool. And I really liked the way they handled that here.
They did a really good job of just like almost offhandedly, like just having that expository dialogue just between those two characters over, like, you know, it had them bonding over their radiation thing, which I don't think is a thing we've mentioned because we just got to the point where that happened.
Yeah, I was going to mention that more at the end because that's kind of where they talk about it a little more.
Right.
But yeah, that's also cool.
So yeah, like Daniel just said just now, like it's very like it's a bit of an exposition dump, but it's every time this movie does
natural, like it feels
every time
like
this movie does something like that, they do a trope. It's never bad.
Yeah,
like the execution of everything in this movie is surprisingly really good. Anyway, so getting back to plot, if we have nothing to add about that very cool scene.
Have we talked about the Kingpin and his glasses?
Kingpin has showed up at this point.
Is the villain of this movie.
Yes, because it's a Daredevil backdoor pilot.
Right. Kingpin is cool. He has hair and a beard and Ray-Bans.
He does have hair, a beard, and pit vipers.
Right. He also has a bunch of screens and looks and acts like a James Bond villain, which is
very much
cool.
so. And the screen thing.
Sorry.
We'll get to the screen thing as we kind of go through it, but that's his character in this. Is he's got eyes everywhere because of computer technology, which I don't know because I don't read comics terribly much. I don't know if that's a comic thing.
It might be. Who knows?
I don't know if like him having eyes everywhere is a comic thing. I would assume so because he's the Kingpin. But if it is, it's a really cool way to accomplish that by doing it via screens. Like that's kind of a neat thing that they do, and it's kind of a cool character beat. I mean, it doesn't really like it kind of goes somewhere, and I would assume if this show did get its spinoff that it was supposed to get, it would have.
Well, yeah, and we'll get to it when we get to the end of the movie, but it does leave us like as if it's setting up more. Between,
it leaves us wanting more.
Right.
I remember. I say I remember as if I'm remembering something long ago. But when we were watching this and they were showing Kingpin in his lair, I straight up said, "This is a James Bond villain." Because he
very much so
kind of has the appearance of one, but like he literally has a James Bond villain lair, like beat for beat,
like
bar for bar,
bar for bar,
word for word.
So what's next after that?
Is it? We got to Hulk breaking out of prison, right?
Yeah.
Then I think then is when they kidnap Train Girl. Them being Fisk's people.
Yeah. So the Train Girl, who's kind of been the plot device, it's kidnapped.
I really thought she was going to be love interest, if I'm being honest, and she just wasn't, which is cool. Like Like that's another thing that's like,
yeah, no, I like that. It subverted my expectations.
I think it's a trope of modern comic book movies, and that's why I expected it. And then when they didn't do that, I was like, oh, cool. They didn't do the thing that I expected them to do. So it's like my expectations have been subverted, but it was more just the fact that it was before those expectations were set.
Right.
Which is kind of fun.
So they capture the girl. They capture the girl, and then Daredevil is like, I'm going to go after this girl. And then David Banner is like, I'm also going to go with you. And they're like, okay, this is a buddy movie. And they go. Daredevil goes first, and he does some cool beat up some bad guys stuff. And then, so what happens is he gets kind of surrounded, and they have a bunch of speakers, and he basically gets like sensory overload, kind of.
Yeah, well, first they essentially have a giant flashbang on him. They shine a bunch of lights and play like they psyopsed him is what they did.
And he, Daredevil gets beat up, and then David Banner is there, and he's like, I'm gonna Hulk out, dude, and then he hulks out. And then
so Fisk's plan is to defeat the Daredevil. Like that's his goal because he wants to be in charge of crime for the whole city. And his way of doing that is to prove to the other crime bosses that he can defeat their common enemy, which is the Daredevil. And so that's sort of like that's just the plan or the plot of the movie. And so that's how this works in. So this woman is just bait for Daredevil to come and save. And it works. Like Kingpin was spot on with what he wanted to do, and he wins. And so like that's why that scene is important, because it's the footage he needs to
he was recording the whole thing for those people
because he's a little creepster.
Because he's a James Bond villain who loves watching people on TV screens.
Right. So and then Hulk carries Daredevil out to a little corner, and Hulk de-hulks into David Banner, and Matt Murdock. There's a really cool moment right here where Matt Murdock feels the face of Hulk, and then Hulk turns into David, and then he has the realization of what David was warning him about the whole time.
Yeah.
And then Matt says to David, like, oh, you poor soul. Like, it was so good.
I mean, the special effects weren't great, but you can forgive. Like, it was.
You keep dissing the special effects in Hulk, but I love it.
I really liked the Hulk transformations, both unhulking and rehulking.
I like most of them. Cool. This is the only one that I felt was like.
That one, I kind of liked that one quite a bit, actually.
I mean, it was a simple way to do it. It was just like cut away, cut back, and now he's Banner, which is fine. Like,
but it had the hand being on his face. I thought that was cool.
I have a theory actually. So, Hulk only unhulks when Matt puts his hand on his face. What if David Banner is gay? And it was the comfort of Matthew Murdock that brought him back. It was the comfort of Matthew Murdock that brought him back. They're lovers. This is a story of lovers, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely,
right. Yeah, for sure.
This is literally Too Fast, Too Furious.
It's true.
Anyway, so that happens, and then they go back to the Daredevil house. That sounds like a TikTok influencer.
The Daredevil house.
We're going back to the Daredevil house for sure.
So they do that, and then Daredevil is like, "Man, I suck." And then David Banner's like, "No, man, I love you. You're great."
They have a great bromance.
They have a earlier in the first apartment. Daredevil house bit. Daredevil is, because they're lovers. He's comforting David, and now this is like the reverse of like, we're the same person, and we both, had our lives, radically changed by these weird scientific
radiation.
substances.
Radiation affected both of us because we are both the Hulk and
we are
Daredevil.
radiation brothers.
We are radiation friends.
We are the Hulk and Daredevil, respectively, starring in Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
It's kind of like that really cringy, like in hindsight, it's super cringy. That thing that they did with Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, like as Marvel was kind of rising to popularity, where they were like science bros. It's sort of like that, but with radiation.
Radiation bro.
we be radiation brothers.
This is much cooler than the science bros thing in the MCU, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it's about the same. It's just fresh on your mind.
Maybe.
So it seems cooler.
I'll never admit that, though.
So David gives Matt a pep talk. And he's like, no, man, I love you, man. You're great. You're so cool. I love Daredevil. And then Matt's like, you know what, David Banner? You're so right.
He says, you're all right, friend.
He's like, we should Trial of the Incredible Hulk more often, friend.
That's exactly what he says. I was there.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah, in the Daredevil house. That little beat initiates the final battle, kind of. Daredevil doesn't really fight Kingpin in this, as Dalton said, because it feels like they were setting up for a show. And
although I don't know, I'm not sure if I mentioned this. I know I said it when it happened in the movie. It's set up. I don't remember. I think it said that it was 10 years since Daredevil.
Yeah,
Daredeviling.
Yes,
and it's established a relationship between Kingpin and Daredevil.
Correct.
Like,
well,
they've
been fighting for a while.
Yeah,
like it's not like a recent rivalry between, which is cool. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, no, I liked that a lot. It gave me some visuals of them having a screen fight.
It goes back to the whole like this is not an origin story.
Yeah.
Thing. Like this is just a day in the existence of the Daredevil / the Devil of Hell's Kitchen / Matthew Murdock.
Yeah.
What does that final battle look like? I totally forgot.
It wasn't really a battle, so they go into Fisk's building as Fisk is showing the footage to the bad guys.
This is the one that had quite a few cracked Daredevil scenes, like every other Daredevil scene.
This was the payoff of all of the things that this movie has been setting up.
This had the one scene that you mentioned, Dalton, where he covers David Banner's mouth when he sneaks up.
Yes. Okay,
this
Dalton, please explain that.
Yeah, so this was so cool that we like paused it, or I paused it and went back.
We ran that shit back.
Because I was so impressed. So it's just this little tiny character moment, because they've done the thing several times with Matthew Murdock feeling
where he feel of the face.
He feel of the face, and specifically with Banner, just so he can like get a good feeling of who he is, because he's a blind man. And there's this scene where he sneaks up behind him as they're trying to defeat the king.
Yeah, well, you had said it showed the one of the hench dudes. And then it panned, and we were all like, "Oh, Daredevil's gonna show up!" But then it was actually David Banner, and then
and then from the shadow, like right behind him,
it's such a fast scene.
Yes, so Daredevil shows up right behind him.
So little, but also so much happens.
Correct, and he shows up right behind him, and instead of just like treating it like normal, instead of assuming that who he thought it was is who he was, he feels his face first, which is not a super important whatever. They don't even draw attention to it. The editor of this may not have even known.
You said that it was probably something that either you or Bobbin said it was probably something the actor just improvised.
Correct.
It didn't like it was like a directed thing, otherwise they would have drawn focus.
It doesn't seem like it was scripted. It doesn't seem like it was directed. It's just a thing that the actor does, which is so cool, because it's this little tiny character moment that just sells you on this idea that this is a blind man trying to see, right? Like, and it just really sells you on this character in such a small way. And there are a lot of other little moments like this, and I'm sure there are some that we didn't even notice.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
And the actor, I cannot stress enough how well the actor who is playing Matt Murdock plays this character, because he does
I don't
such
think
a
did
good
we mention
job.
did we mention the window scenes
where he's
where
like
he's
feeling the
feeling the
glass.
warmth of the sun on the glass? Yeah, because
Yeah.
that was a very good blind man establishing thing.
Yeah, that was a cool sort of dialogue or explanation, just a thing in the script that
I
sells
liked
it.
It was a good contrast. It's like displaying how he is like hopeful versus Banner being horribly depressed about his situation.
Right, and I think we're so used to Murdoch being the depressed guy.
Charlie Cox version.
Correct. Yeah. Or not, even if it's not the depressed Charlie Cox version, there's also the depressed Ben Affleck
Well, I don't
version.
read comics because I'm not a nerd.
Well,
Affleck wasn't that depressed.
I mean, he had his moments.
He was more depressed than this, but yeah.
Depressing little bath thing.
Right.
Right.
He was more just like emo early 2000s.
Yeah.
But like I think we're so used to that seeing this, it's a very emotionally conflicted individual, which is kind of cool because we've never seen that for this character, even still today. Like
especially for the time though.
Right. I mean, I guess today the Cox version sort of contrasts his emotions.
He has his
definitely has its moments, but
side.
I don't know. It's just really cool, and I like all of the moments dealing with that because the actor does such a good job, but also because it's so well written. I don't know, just kind of across the board, it's really cool.
This is just such a good movie, like way better than it should be.
Okay. Finishing up, I think.
Yeah.
Daredevil
coming to the end. We do need to talk about the Kingpin's pit vipers.
Yeah, they had quite a few cool reflective shots in that.
And there's like we were making fun of it at first. We were like, I can't believe they gave him like.
I mean, I still think it's a goofy choice, but it was worth it for the cool reflective.
They were so cool.
No, they weren't.
They weren't very cool, but the stuff they did with them was cool. Yeah.
The scenes that they had him like where the screens were reflected, especially given that's his main character beat in this TV movie, is that he sees these reflections and like
he did. Yeah, and you mentioned this while we were watching it. He seems like a film director. Like just the way he sits and observes, and like he's always like kind of like shrouded in shadow.
Yeah, and it's this
cool.
like electronic chair that swivels at his
his cool electronic James Bond villain chair.
It's just neat, and I know it's kind of a goofy choice to have him in these like hyper reflective glasses, but it lets us see him and see what he's looking at the same time, which is, I think, very, very cool. You can disagree all you want, but I liked it, and that's what matters.
You have the wrong opinion, but we will proceed. So this is the bit we kind of talked about a little bit, where Daredevil has his absolutely correct the original hallway fight. Daredevil fights these goons in a hallway. He's kind of surrounded, and then he jumps up to the ceiling, and then he kind of sneaks around, goes behind.
He pops up behind another group.
He falls down behind the guy, and then he starts beating everybody up. And it's, slow TV 80s action, but it still works. It's so good.
Well, once again, it goes back to that thing where it's like, yes, the slow 80s action is slow, but it also kind of adds because they use it in a way that makes this character feel like it's intentional. Like it doesn't ever feel like he's doing it out of necessity. It feels like
it's like the way he moves, like his arms were always out, like he was feeling his surroundings.
He's such a blind ninja.
Right. Yeah. He acts like a blind ninja would act, and it's not even on purpose. It's just a limitation of the time.
So Daredevil has his fight. What's after that? Let me think.
Is Hulk in the final fight? He wasn't, right? It was just Banner was there.
He did not Hulk out. Banner was there, but he did not Hulk out for the final fight.
Yeah.
He
right. No,
rarely
I think
hulks
that's
out in this movie.
I think
twice.
Okay, we didn't talk about there was so we talked about Kingpin showing the stuff on like the PowerPoint presentation of Daredevil supposedly being dead, and as there's like he's saying like as you can see Daredevil is dead, and
He
it
is
pans
dead,
to
devil.
the picture, right? It pans to the picture of the supposedly dead Daredevil on his projector, and on the styrofoam wall, Daredevil jumps through with his batons in hand in a very cool shot of him shattering the styrofoam wall like the Kool-Aid Man.
And it is very much a styrofoam wall.
So,
They showed it like up close, which was not the best move. But
something that we brought up a couple times is that Hulk rarely goes sicko mode in this whole movie. Like maybe only a few times throughout an hour and a half runtime.
So there's the train scene,
so.
and then there's the.
Okay, yeah, let him finish, then we'll try and figure out all the Hulk scenes.
So, but it almost like feels like the point.
Yeah,
like it almost was like they were succeeding by the end by Banner not hulking out.
Yes.
At the end when they saved the woman from the train finally and like let her free. Yeah.
It's like there's this idea, because that was kind of the plot of the show from what I remember from the very few episodes I've seen. Like the plot of the show
was basically him hitchhiking, trying to find a cure, and being depressed.
Correct. It's him trying to find like an answer to the Hulk problem. And in this, it feels like he sort of found that. Because I think, so there's the opening scene at the beginning, which doesn't really count because it's just a shot from the show.
Yeah.
There's the scene on the train.
There's the subway scene, then the dream.
The
trial
dream that turns him into the real Hulk.
Turns into actual. So we'll count that as one scene because he barely hulks out in the dream, and then he hulks out and smashes out of the thing. Yeah, so that's two.
And then there's the Kingpin battles. So there's really three.
There's him saving Daredevil, and then I guess that's it.
Which leads me to think like, and I mentioned this while we were watching it. I think there's a good chance that maybe they just couldn't get Lou Ferrigno, which may lead to why they were using this as a backdoor pilot for Daredevil. I don't know that, but it sort of feels like that because there's just not a lot of Hulk in this Hulk movie.
That Lou Ferrigno was getting tired of getting painted green.
Right. And it's expensive, right? So it's cheaper to not do that. So that could be part of it too, especially since you've got to pay for all the Daredevil special effects. So who knows?
Right. So basically, wrapping up the plot here, they save the woman, they go back to Daredevil house, they have another little pep talk, they shake hands, go buddy, kiss each other on the cheek, and they'll go.
And they call each other Radiation Brothers.
They do. They do say that.
Cool.
They say we're brothers.
That is.
And they kind of have this cool little like, they leave you with this feeling of like, the Hulk and Daredevil are friends. That's really cool. And then you kind of view this version of the Hulk as like, oh, he's friends with Daredevil. Nice.
Right. Well, don't forget that at the end of the Fisk fight, Fisk escapes in a boat that has a propeller on it.
A boat that is flying that was apparently big enough that it could be seen from the skyline, which I just don't believe. But.
Well, I think the thing encasing it was big enough where it could be seen from the skyline, but that also doesn't seem believable. Because the final scene of this movie is Matt Murdock in his office with a man who is just rip off Foggy Nelson, who they didn't name Foggy Nelson. And he says, hey, come look at this. And then Matt walks up to the window and he's like, am I looking at it? I am blind. And the man apologizes. And then he says
they had a lot of good blind jokes in this.
That was the only one where I was like, okay, like that was goofy.
Right. Well, that was like that was that was. I think it was also just because that was like the 10th.
Right.
The first
I think
couple
it was
were very fun.
And
that took me by surprise.
A lot of them were Banner, and those were good because he didn't know, like he was getting used to him being a blind man. This is a man who works day in and day out with him, who would know that he's blind.
Yeah.
And he still asked him to come look at something out the window.
I forgot to mention, it's kind of just a small little scene, but before we wrap, when right before Daredevil shows up to Bruce Banner's apartment, uh, Matt Murdock is on the phone with his great value Foggy Nelson, and he's like, Matt says, "Get the map off the wall. I need to see
Oh
where this
yes,
apartment is at."
absolutely
So
cracked scene.
earlier in the movie, David Banner says like, "I don't know the address of where I'm staying. It's behind the shadow of like a really big building. Um, it's like in a shadow or something." And Matt Murdock, uh, he without obviously without looking at the map, he tells the guy over the phone, he's like, what's between this building and this building, and then what would it look like if the sun was at this point? And through like some Batman detective work, some Sherlock Holmes something or another, he figures out exactly where Banner was.
Yeah,
And
he
it's so
holds up
cool.
a ruler to cast a shadow.
Yeah,
Which
so
is
the
cool.
so the lamp is the sun, and
To be
the
the building,
ruler
yeah.
is the Fisk building, which is also
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like absolutely cracked.
That was amazing. Anyways, yeah. Basically wrapping up, they have their bro handshake, and then David goes off to hitchhike again for the next movie,
Yeah,
and that's about it.
and it's
Yeah,
very
and it
cool.
ends with the very sad song.
It does. It ends with the saddest song maybe ever written. Like it's such
That's
a
it.
sad song, dude.
Yeah.
That is Trial of the Incredible Hulk for the most part.
Trial of the Incredible movie.
Trial
Yeah,
of the
banger.
Incredible Daredevil movie.
Genuinely
True.
way cooler than I ever thought it could be going into
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I was expecting it to be good, and it still was better than I expected.
Uh, just bringing it up again. The actor's name is Rex Smith, who portrayed Matt Murdock in this film. He genuinely is amazing.
He does such a good job
Matt
at
Murdock.
pretending to
Again,
be
like
blind.
Dalton said, we questioned if he was blind or not because he did
Yeah.
such an amazing job. With
And
this.
that can't be overstated. Like
Yeah.
it's really I don't want to say it's easy to play a blind character because it's not. But what it is it's difficult to do that so well that people question if you're acting blind or if you are legitimately blind. Like that's such a difficult thing to pull off that usually you can tell. Like typically you can tell, oh, this person's acting blind, but he's doing a good job. Like Charlie Cox, for instance. Like, I know he's not. He does such a good job, but I still know he's not blind, and so there's that level of disconnect. With this, there wasn't that level of disconnect. Like, he legitimately felt like a blind man, and I felt like I was watching a blind man in a movie, which is just like baffling that it was that good in the trial of the Incredible Hulk. Like that's so weird.
It's been said a bunch of times before, but obviously, uh, I'm forgetting names.
true.
Brixler, something Brixler.
Oh, Bill
David
Bixby?
Banner.
Bill Bixby?
Huh? What's that?
Bill
Bill
Bixby?
Bixby?
Bill Brixby.
Bixby?
Is
Bigsby.
very is an excellent actor. Legendary bodybuilder Lou Ferrigno looks and does an amazing job.
That's actually Lou Fargino.
And he does a good job for what he's in this movie.
Yeah.
Which should be noted that isn't very much.
Not as good as his performance on the Eric Andre show, but I still think it was pretty good.
I still stand
Regardless.
by, like, I know we talked about this a little bit. I do think I prefer CGI Hulk just because I think you can kind of create that scale that the comics have.
Yeah.
But there is something neat about practical Hulk.
Yeah, you said it felt very real. Like, it
Yes.
feels more genuine than...
Well, believe it or not, it's actually like a guy.
Yeah,
It's a guy
right.
screen.
I don't believe that, actually.
And the interesting thing about it is not only does it feel like a guy, but it also feels more accessible to this story than I think CGI Hulk would feel. We talked about that while we were watching it. It's like when you watch when you watch like the MCU Hulk, like yes, he's cool and yes, he's big and yes, he's probably more comic accurate, but I don't think I could believe him in a story with Daredevil because that's such like a down to earth, small scale character. But with
he felt very street level in this, yeah.
Yeah, it's believable, but it also just like it adds to that story of them working together because I believe that he would work together with him. And so that's pretty cool.
True.
So Bobbin's broken down the plot. We've talked a lot. We've sung this movie's praises. I would recommend if you want to watch it. If you live in America, it's streaming on Tubi, which is a free streaming service, so you can watch it really easily. And I would recommend it easily.
Yeah, I would very highly recommend this movie if you are a fan of the character Daredevil, Matthew Murdock, the Devil of Hell's Kitchen.
Correct. Maybe not if you're not a fan of Daredevil, but are a fan of the Hulk.
If you're more of a Hulk fan, this movie is not for you. Although it does still have some good Hulk. Like if you're a fan of the show, then you will like this movie.
Correct.
If you're a fan of Daredevil, you will like this movie.
It's got some really cool Bruce/David Banner stuff. Not a whole lot of cool Hulk stuff.
All the Bruce/David stuff is very good.
I'm also a little bit biased because I used to watch the show with my dad, and I've seen almost every episode, I think.
Yeah, which I think I would have enjoyed this more had I seen more of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
The show is great. It's just more of this. But this was just great. Like was said, we can't sing the praises enough. There's and some of it is also like we had no expectations really.
I mean, there is some David
I
stuff.
Did not.
Let's be honest.
Expectations, and it was still exceeded.
I mean, if we're being completely honest, there is some dated stuff in this. It is a TV movie from the 1980s.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. Specifically, the end boat shot.
Right. I mean, all things considered, a TV movie from the 1980s. It's amazing.
Correct. Yeah, it's really good for that. The special effects are okay for the time and on a TV movie budget. It's in 4:3, so it's as good as Zack Snyder's Justice League.
True.
Which is cracked. Like I'm telling you, Bill Bixby, the director, did it first. He did it before Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
That's something to note. That the actor Bill Bixby, the actor who plays David, directed the movie, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned it seems like he is either very good at doing his research for the characters, or he is just a comic nerd, both of which are very cool.
I think he wanted to make a movie about the Hulk finally getting his comeuppance for the things that he has done, and somebody said, in the comic books there's this character, and maybe it was Stan Lee. I mean, who knows, because Stan Lee was more involved with these early projects than he has been projects since. Not anymore, of course, because he has passed away, but like these early projects he was very hands-on with. So maybe that was maybe it was Stan Lee's idea to make this movie. I really don't know because I don't know enough about it.
Proposal was Bill Bixby was nowadays if you're signed on to a Marvel movie, you can just Google stuff about the character. You don't necessarily have to read every comic, and you don't have to go to all these comic book stores and whatever. But then playing the Hulk, you gotta find Hulk comics and read them. And my theory was like he just found Daredevil in a Hulk comic book, and he's like, what if I think perhaps Matthew Murdock and the Hulk perhaps
I mean, maybe, or maybe it was the studio saying, hey, we want to make a Daredevil show and we want to use the Hulk as a springboard to do that. Who knows what the answer to this is? I'm just glad whatever happened.
No, I think they actually just had a big wheel in the Marvel office, and then the wheel had a bunch of different Marvel characters. One of them being like Galactus, like Squirrel Girl. You have Daredevil.
Squirrel Girl made the wheel.
Yeah. You don't know about the canceled Squirrel Girl Hulk special?
No, I can't say I've heard of that one.
I think you're confusing this because that sounds like the wheel that DC has currently.
Nice one.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Appreciate it, homie. But yeah, no, it's a really cool movie. And it like I said, in America, it's streaming on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. You can watch this movie free of charge, and it's cool. And I don't know, it's just interesting to see comic book movies with this sort of care taken in this era where people didn't care about them the same way that they're cared about today.
When the comic book material, adapting comic book material, they were like ashamed to be adapting that.
Correct. And not only that, but just like people didn't care as much, and on top of people not caring as much, like
the creatives behind the media did not care.
Yes,
really.
but they also let that creative vision kind of fly too, which is another thing that we don't see today. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Movies will sacrifice that creative vision just for having comic accuracy, and they don't really do that here, where they very easily could have. It's just a lot of really cool things working at once that we don't usually see from modern comic book movies. And for me, that was really cool.
Daniel, do you have any closing thoughts?
I like this movie. Daredevil is cool.
I like the part when he said, to defeat Kingpin, I will have to become the trial of the Incredible Hulk.
I really wish that this movie had done better, or specifically the Daredevil parts had been well received, and a Daredevil spin-off show in the late or early 90s, late 80s had occurred, because that would have been very cool.
It would have been.
I have a question for one of you, if you know. When was was it a Spider-Man movie that was in the 70s?
It was a TV series.
There was a TV show, yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think it was related to this set. Like,
what I'm wondering is, like, if that was already going, why didn't you team up Spider-Man with Hulk?
I don't know.
That would have been perfect.
Yeah, I mean, probably. It probably goes back.
The Spider-Man show, was that 60s or 70s?
It was 70s, I think.
It was.
I'm gonna look it up right
now. I think I'm thinking the 60s was the animated show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and part of it probably has to do with the same stuff we've got today with the rights issues and all of those things too.
Right. Yeah.
The Amazing Spider-Man, 1977.
Which was, I think, only a year before Incredible Hulk started. I think it was
I think it was
82.
Yeah, correct. So it would have been the same era that this show was
right,
running.
Yeah.
But it also, once again, it goes back to, like, there were still rights issues back then, and I'm sure a different network had Hulk that had Spider-Man. And
Marvel then had the problems that DC has been having in the 2010s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And still a little bit now.
Well, did they have that problem in the 2010s?
DC?
Or was it more just they didn't want to connect things because that didn't seem like a thing that would work back then?
Maybe I'm thinking of, like, Fox, X-Men.
Yeah, I think you're thinking. I mean, Marvel had this issue up until Disney acquired Fox
a few years ago. Yeah,
I mean, the Sony Spider-Man thing changed a lot.
Still have a bit of this issue with the Hulk solo movie rights, but that's,
right. I mean, this is a thing that is still going on.
Right.
So maybe it was Universal had the rights to the Hulk, and Sony or whoever was producing that at the time had the rights to Spider-Man.
And Disney will not stop until they have all of it. Disney will not stop. Disney will not stop. Disney will not stop.
True.
Yeah, true. But yeah, this was a very cool thing. I really liked it. I would recommend that you watch it if you.
Yeah, I would very highly recommend this.
This is one of the coolest things we've watched on the podcast because I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we've gone way over on this episode. This is one of the longest episodes of the podcast, if not the longest episode of the podcast. Next week we will be, because we didn't expect to enjoy this as much, so we're going back and we're going to watch the first of this trilogy, which is The Return or The Death?
Yes, no, it's The Return, which is the one with Thor.
Yes, it's The Return of the Incredible Hulk, which is the first of these revival movies for the series, which has Mr. Duncan from Good Luck Charlie as Thor, the god of thunder. So we're going to be watching that next on the very next episode of Semi Pro. So If you are watching on YouTube, do all of the YouTube things, like this video, subscribe, do all of the things that you are instructed to do by the YouTube algorithm. If you're watching on any of our streaming platforms, go ahead and rate this podcast, give it a review, send it to your friends. That helps to push this show out to more people. But we very much appreciate you listening to this. We hope you check out the movie, and we'll see you on the very next episode of Semi-Pro.
Yeah.
True.
Banger.